Your brain is slower than your mouth. That's the real reason English feels hard. Not grammar. Not vocabulary. Not your accent. It's the tiny delay happening inside your head every single time you speak. Someone asks you a simple question. How was your day? And in 1 second, your brain secretly does this. First, you hear the English. Then you translate it into your language. Then you create the answer in your language. Then you translate the answer back into English. Then you finally speak. And by the time the words come out, the moment is already gone. You hesitate. You panic. You forget simple words you already know. Meanwhile, native speakers seem effortless. Vast. Automatic. Almost like they don't think at all. But here's the strange part. They are thinking. Just not translating. And once you understand the difference, something clicks forever. Because fluent English speakers don't build sentences the way most learners do. They build reactions. And tonight, I'm going to show you the exact mental switch that changes everything. Not with boring grammar lessons. Not with complicated study tricks. But with one strange realization that completely changes how your brain uses English. And once you notice it, you can never unsee it again. A few years ago, I met a student named Daniel. Daniel knew thousands of English words. His grammar was excellent. His pronunciation was clear. He could pass exams easily. But when real conversations started, everything collapsed. At restaurants, he froze. During meetings, he panicked. On phone calls, his mind went blank. And the weirdest part, after every conversation, he suddenly knew exactly what he should have said. Hours later, sometimes even minutes later. Have you ever experienced that? You walk away from the conversation, and suddenly your brain becomes fluent. Perfect sentences appear. Perfect vocabulary appears. Perfect confidence appears. Too late. That's because your English knowledge wasn't the problem. Your processing system was. And once Daniel discovered this, his progress exploded. But not in the way you think. One day, I asked him a strange question. When you hear the word apple in your language, what happens in your mind? He answered immediately. I see an apple. Exactly. Not translation. Not grammar. Not analysis. Just meaning. Instant meaning. Then I asked him something else. When you hear the word apple in English, what happens? He paused. And then he laughed. Because he realized the truth immediately. When he heard apple in English, he first saw the word from his own language. Then the image. That tiny extra step was slowing everything down. And most English learners never notice this hidden habit. They think they have a speaking problem. But actually, they have a conversion problem. Their brain treats English like math. Input. Translate. Process. Output. But fluent speakers don't convert language. They experience language. That's why children become fluent faster than adults sometimes. Not because children are smarter. Actually, adults learn faster in many ways. But children do one powerful thing naturally. They connect English directly to life. When a child hears water, they don't think of translation. They think of drinking. Feeling thirsty. Cold water. A glass. Pure meaning. And this is where most learners accidentally trap themselves for years. School trained you to translate everything. Word lists. vocabulary tables, grammar exercises. English became a code instead of a real experience. But your brain was never designed to speak through translation. That's why conversations feel exhausting. Your mind is doing double work every second. And the craziest part, you can actually feel the exact moment translation is happening. Watch this. If I say, blue elephant dancing on a pizza, did you translate that? No. You instantly imagined it. Your brain can already think directly in English. You've done it before. The problem is, you only do it with easy words. The moment English becomes emotional, fast, or unexpected, your brain runs back to safety. Translation. And this next part is important. Because most people try to solve this problem completely wrong. They think, I need more vocabulary. So they memorize thousands of words. Still translating. Or they think, I need more grammar. So they study more rules. Still translating. But translation is not removed by knowledge. It's removed by repetition of direct meaning. That changes everything. Because now your goal is different. You are no longer trying to become a human dictionary. You are training automatic reactions. And the fastest way to do this is surprisingly simple. You stop learning single words and start learning emotional chunks. This is exactly how fluent speakers actually talk. Not word by word. Chunk by chunk. For example, native speakers don't build this sentence slowly. I am very tired today. No. Their brain already stores. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. I can't keep my eyes open. Entire reactions already prepared. Like muscle memory. That's why they speak fast. Not because they think faster. Because they think less. And once you understand this, something powerful happens. You stop trying to create English from zero every time. Instead, you start collecting ready-made reactions. And suddenly conversations feel lighter. Faster. More natural. But there's another hidden problem almost nobody talks about. And honestly, this one changes everything. Most learners only use English during study mode. Think about it. You study English for 1 hour. Then spend the other 23 hours thinking in your native language. Your brain receives one message very clearly. English is not real life. English is homework. So naturally, your brain refuses to automate it. Because automation only happens with survival-level repetition. This is why immersion works so well. Not because you magically absorb grammar from the air, but because your brain starts believing. This language matters now. And there's one tiny exercise that completely changed Daniel's fluency. At first, it sounded ridiculously simple. Too simple. But within weeks, his speaking speed changed dramatically. Every morning, he stopped narrating his life in his native language. Instead, he described tiny moments in English. Very tiny moments. I'm opening the door. The coffee is hot. I'm tired. I need my phone. That car is fast. Simple. Vast. No pressure. At first, his brain resisted hard. There were long pauses. Mental blocks. Frustration. Sometimes he wanted to quit after 2 minutes. Because for the first time, he was forcing English to exist without translation. And your brain hates new pathways in the beginning. But then something strange happened around week 3. The pauses became shorter. Then suddenly, certain phrases started appearing automatically. No translation. Just instant thought. Exactly like native speakers. And this is the moment most learners never reach. Because they quit too early. They mistake slowness for failure. But slowness is actually the construction phase. Your brain is literally building new neural shortcuts. And shortcuts take repetition. Not perfection. In fact, one of the biggest myths about fluency is this idea that fluent people never make mistakes. Completely false. Fluent speakers make mistakes constantly. Even native speakers do. The real difference is speed and comfort. Fluent speakers keep moving. Learners stop themselves. Every sentence becomes a performance. Every word becomes danger. And that fear creates even more translation. Because your brain becomes obsessed with correctness instead of communication. This is why some people with bad grammar sound fluent, while others with perfect grammar sound nervous and slow. One person is communicating. The other is calculating. And your brain can only do one efficiently at a time. Now here's where things get really interesting. Because there's a hidden stage between translating and thinking directly in English. And almost nobody talks about it. It's called compressed translation. This is where your brain still translates. But so quickly, you barely notice it. That's actually progress. A huge sign of improvement. Many learners panic during this stage because they think, I'm still translating sometimes. That's normal. Your brain is gradually deleting the middle step. Fluency is not a light switch. It's more like ice melting. Slowly. Quietly. Until one day, something suddenly flows naturally. And usually, the first signs appear in unexpected moments. You hear a joke in English and laugh instantly. You react emotionally before translating. You dream in English for 2 seconds. You accidentally answer someone in English without planning. Those tiny moments matter more than test scores. Because they prove your brain is starting to trust English directly. And trust is everything. Actually, there's a dangerous habit that destroys this trust completely. And almost every learner does it daily. The moment they hear a word they don't know, they panic. Immediately. Conversation stops. Confidence drops. Translation begins. But fluent speakers don't understand every word either. They guess. Flow. Continue. Imagine hearing this sentence. Yesterday was crazy, but somehow we pulled it off in the end. Maybe you don't know, pulled it off. But your brain still understands the emotional meaning. Success after difficulty. That's enough. Real communication works through meaning first. Precision second. But school trained you backwards. Exact words first. Meaning later. And this creates fear of uncertainty. But fluency actually requires comfort with uncertainty. Because conversations move too fast for perfect analysis. And here's the weird paradox. The more you stop obsessing over every word, the faster your understanding improves. Because now your brain focuses on meaning patterns instead of translation details. This is exactly how listening suddenly becomes easier for advanced learners. Not because people start speaking slower, but because the learner finally stops trying to translate every single word. Instead, they absorb ideas, emotion, context, energy. The same way you understand songs, sometimes even when lyrics are unclear. Your brain is more powerful than you think. But most learners never train it correctly. They overload it with rules instead of reactions. And reactions are built emotionally. That's why emotional English sticks faster. Think about phrases you never forget. I love you. I'm sorry. Hurry up. What happened? I'm so happy. Why are these easy to remember? Because emotion burns language deeper into memory. Your brain prioritizes emotionally useful information. Which means, if you want to stop translating, you need more emotional English experiences. Not just textbooks. This is why movies help. Why stories help. Why conversations help. Because emotions bypass translation. And something fascinating happens when you stop treating English like a school subject. It slowly becomes part of your identity. Not a task. Not homework. A real part of you. And once that shift happens, everything accelerates. Your humor changes. Your reactions change. Your personality starts appearing in English. That's the moment fluency becomes real. Not when grammar becomes perfect, but when you become visible inside the language. And honestly, this next part might be the most important thing you hear tonight. Most people are trying to sound like perfect English speakers. But fluent communication is not about perfection. It's about connection. Some of the most charismatic English speakers in the world still have strong accents, still make mistakes, still pause sometimes. But people love listening to them because they communicate energy confidently. Meanwhile, some learners speak like robots trying to pass an exam. Technically correct, emotionally invisible. And your brain notices this too. Because when English feels fake, forced, and stressful, your mind avoids using it naturally. But when English becomes personal, your brain relaxes. And relaxed brains learn faster. This is why your best English moments usually happen when you forget you're practicing. While laughing, watching videos, talking to friends, playing games, telling stories. Suddenly words appear naturally. Because pressure disappears. And pressure is one of the biggest causes of translation. The brain under stress always returns to safety habits. That's human nature. So if you truly want to think in English, stop trying to sound impressive. Start trying to feel real. Simple words. Real emotions. Fast reactions. That's the foundation of fluency. Not perfection. And there's one final shift that changes everything forever. Most learners ask, how do I translate faster? But fluent speakers ask a completely different question without realizing it. How do I respond faster emotionally? That's why fluency feels alive. It's not vocabulary speed. It's emotional speed. And once your emotions connect directly to English, translation starts disappearing automatically. Not overnight, but naturally, quietly, until one day someone asks you a question, and English simply appears. No mental conversion. No panic. No delay. Just thought becoming sound. And the craziest part, you won't even notice the exact moment it happens. Because fluency doesn't arrive like an explosion. It arrives like a habit. One day, you'll be halfway through a conversation and suddenly realize something terrifying. You forgot to translate. For a few seconds, your brain skipped the old system completely. And honestly, that moment feels almost unreal. Because for years, you believed fluent people had some special talent. Some fast brain. Some secret grammar knowledge. Some magical confidence. But then you discover the truth. Fluency was never about becoming smarter. It was about becoming more automatic. And automation changes everything. Think about driving a car. At first, every movement feels impossible. Mirrors, pedals, signals, steering. Your brain struggles with every tiny action. But after enough repetition, you stop thinking about the mechanics. You simply drive. Language works exactly the same way. At first, your brain focuses on construction. Later, it focuses on meaning. And eventually, it focuses on connection. That's the real destination. Not perfect grammar. Not fancy vocabulary. Connection. But there's a hidden reason why so many intelligent learners stay stuck for years. And once you hear this, you'll never study English the same way again. Most people practice English in slow motion. They read slowly, write slowly, think slowly. Then they expect fast speaking to appear magically one day. But your brain adapts to the speed you train. If you always practice English carefully, your brain becomes careful, not fluent. This is why some learners understand everything in textbooks, but panic in real conversations. Real conversations are messy. People interrupt. People mumble. People change topics suddenly. People speak emotionally. And your brain doesn't have time to build perfect sentences from grammar rules. That system collapses under pressure. So the goal is not to build perfect English slowly. The goal is to build imperfect English quickly. Because speed creates flow. And flow creates confidence. One of the fastest exercises for this is something most learners avoid completely. Speaking before you feel ready. Not after. Before. Sounds terrifying, right? That's exactly why it works. Because waiting to feel fluent before speaking is like waiting to become strong before going to the gym. The speaking itself creates fluency, not preparation alone. And yes, at first, it feels uncomfortable. Your sentences break. You forget words. You sound awkward. But something powerful happens inside discomfort. Your brain starts adapting for survival. And survival accelerates learning faster than comfort ever will. That's why people often improve dramatically after traveling abroad. Not because they suddenly studied harder, but because English became necessary. Urgent. Alive. The brain loves urgency. Actually, there's a fascinating experiment about this. Researchers discovered that people remember information far better when emotions are involved. Fear, excitement, embarrassment, joy. Emotion tells the brain, this matters, keep this. That's why you can forget 10 vocabulary lists. But never forget one embarrassing conversation. Your brain stamped it permanently. And strangely enough, that embarrassment can become your greatest advantage. Because mistakes create emotional memory. Which means mistakes are not interruptions to learning. They are learning. But school trained you to fear mistakes like punishment. So every time you speak English, your brain secretly thinks, danger. And danger creates hesitation. Hesitation creates translation. Translation creates silence. That cycle traps millions of learners. But confident speakers break the cycle differently. They allow ugly English. Temporary ugly English. And ugly English eventually becomes smooth English through repetition. Nobody likes hearing that part. People want fluency to look graceful immediately. But real fluency grows through messy stages nobody sees. Even native-speaking children sound strange for years. Broken sentences, wrong grammar, weird pronunciation. But they continue anyway. That continuation matters more than perfection. And honestly, adults often learn slower because adults are too self-aware. Children don't care if they sound stupid. Adults do. So adults stay silent longer. And silence is dangerous for fluency. Because passive English and active English are completely different skills. You can understand a movie and still struggle to speak. You can know grammar and still freeze during conversation. Because recognition is not production. Your brain must practice retrieval. Fast retrieval. That's why one tiny habit can dramatically speed up fluency. Answer questions out loud instantly. Even alone. Imagine someone asks, "What did you eat today?" Don't prepare. Don't translate. Just answer immediately. Even if the sentence is messy. Because now you're training reaction speed instead of perfection. And this is exactly how fluent speakers operate in real life. They don't pause to design beautiful grammar structures. They react. Sometimes imperfectly. But naturally. There's another hidden trick that changes how your brain stores English forever. And almost nobody uses it. Most learners study English visually. They read words constantly. But spoken fluency is built through sound memory. That means your brain must start remembering English as music. Not text. Think about songs you know perfectly. You don't translate songs word by word. You remember rhythm, sound, flow. Fluent speech works similarly. That's why repeating natural spoken phrases out loud is so powerful. Not silently. Out loud. Because your mouth needs training too. English is physical. Your tongue. Your breathing. Your rhythm. Everything matters. And this explains why some learners can write excellent English. But speaking still feels unnatural. Their brain learned English intellectually. Not physically. Real fluency lives in the body as much as the mind. And once you understand that, your entire learning strategy changes. You stop obsessing over difficult vocabulary and start mastering common phrases deeply. Because fluency is built mostly from simple language used automatically. Look at native speakers carefully. Most daily conversations use surprisingly basic words. But they use them fast. Naturally. Emotionally. That's the difference. Not complexity. Automaticity. In fact, some learners accidentally make speaking harder by trying to sound advanced. They search for complicated words during conversations. Meanwhile, the conversation moves on without them. Simple English spoken confidently is infinitely more powerful than complicated English spoken slowly. And here's something strange. When you stop trying to impress people, you actually sound more fluent. Because relaxed speech flows better. Your personality appears. Your humor appears. Your natural rhythm appears. People connect to energy more than vocabulary. Always. Think about the most charismatic people you know. Many are not perfect speakers, but they feel alive when they talk. That energy creates fluency in the listener's mind. And your brain learns faster when communication feels rewarding. That's why enjoyable English content matters so much. If English only exists inside stressful study sessions, your brain associates English with pressure. But if English becomes entertainment, stories, podcasts, videos, conversations. Then your brain stops resisting it. And resistance is one of the biggest hidden barriers to fluency. Because deep down, many learners secretly believe English is painful, hard, exhausting, humiliating. So naturally, the brain avoids using it freely. But once English starts feeling emotionally safe, your progress speeds up dramatically. This is also why comparing yourself to fluent speakers is dangerous. You are comparing your practice stage to someone else's automatic stage. You don't see the years of confusion behind their fluency, the awkward pauses, the embarrassing mistakes, the mental exhaustion. You only see the final performance. But every fluent speaker was once slow too. Every single one. And actually, the slow stage is incredibly important. Because your brain is building connections underneath the surface, even when you feel stuck. Sometimes improvement is invisible before it suddenly becomes obvious. Like water heating slowly before boiling. You think nothing is happening. Then suddenly, everything changes. That's exactly how many learners experience fluency breakthroughs. 1 month feels terrible. Then suddenly conversations become easier almost overnight. But the breakthrough was secretly building long before that moment. Quietly. Through repetition. Through exposure. Through tiny daily moments, your brain was collecting without you noticing. That's why consistency beats intensity almost every time. 1 hour daily changes the brain more than one exhausting weekend of study. Because fluency is adaptation. And adaptation requires repeated exposure over time. Not motivation explosions. Small daily English experiences matter more than dramatic study plans people quit after 4 days. And honestly, this next truth frustrates many learners at first. You cannot force fluency directly. You create conditions for fluency. Then the brain adapts naturally. It's similar to sleep. You can't force yourself to sleep instantly. But you can create the right environment. Fluency works the same way. Input, repetition, emotion, speaking, relaxation, consistency. Then slowly, the brain reorganizes itself. And the most beautiful part. At some point, English stops feeling foreign. That's a magical moment. Not because your English becomes perfect, but because English begins feeling emotionally familiar. Like a room you've visited thousands of times. Comfort replaces tension. And comfort creates speed. Now here's something almost nobody tells learners. Your identity affects your fluency more than your vocabulary. If you constantly say, "My English is terrible. I can't speak. I'm bad at languages," your brain listens carefully. Because identity shapes behavior automatically. People act consistently with the story they believe about themselves. So if your identity becomes, "I'm learning to communicate. I'm becoming more natural every day. I can express myself," your behavior changes too. You speak more, risk more, practice more. And practice creates evidence. Evidence builds confidence. Confidence reduces translation. Everything connects. Actually, one of the fastest ways to think more directly in English is surprisingly emotional. Stop trying to become another person in English. Most learners accidentally create a fake English personality. Too formal, too careful, too robotic. But real fluency happens when your real personality enters the language. Your humor, your opinions, your reactions. Your stories. That authenticity removes mental pressure. Because now you're not performing English. You're using English. Huge difference. And once that shift happens, conversations stop feeling like tests. They start feeling human. That's when speaking becomes enjoyable instead of exhausting. And enjoyment changes the brain dramatically. Because enjoyable repetition lasts longer. Nobody practices painful things consistently forever. But enjoyable things. The brain returns to them automatically. That's why some people become fluent almost accidentally through content they genuinely love. Movies, gaming, sports, music, podcasts, friendships. Emotion pulls the language deeper into memory. Far deeper than forced memorization usually can. And there's one final realization that completely changes how you view fluency forever. Fluent speakers are not translating faster than you. They are trusting faster than you. Trusting their reactions. Trusting imperfect sentences. Trusting communication. While learners often stop every thought halfway. Correcting. Analyzing. Doubting. That doubt creates delay. Delay creates fear. Fear creates more translation. But confidence interrupts the cycle. Not fake confidence. Practice-based confidence. The kind built slowly through repetition and survival. One conversation at a time. One awkward sentence at a time. One tiny breakthrough at a time. And eventually, something beautiful happens. English stops feeling like a language you study. It becomes a language you live in. You stop hearing words individually. You hear meaning, emotion, intentions, people. And that's the exact moment fluency becomes real. Not when you know every grammar rule. Not when your accent disappears. Not when you speak perfectly. But when English becomes automatic enough to carry your thoughts without fear. That's the real goal. Not perfection. Freedom.